Hey, what is up there, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of The Evolve. How y'all guys doing on today? You know what I'm doing excuse me. I'm doing all right, man. I'm excited about today's little talk and this little episode I want to talk to you guys about on today because it is my homie Nas, man. Those of you that know me, I've always said that Nas, he rates number 3 on the greatest rapper of all time inside of hip hop. Nas has always been on my list at number 3. So I'm excited when I hear and when I see and when I can present to you and say that Nas' most recent, newest album that we just did our last video on, it has hit number 1 on the Billboard 200. You know, this is always good to me because I love when our OGs of the 90s, that's what I would say. You know, this is one of our OGs of the 90s. These guys are still able, after decades, when hip hop has changed so many times, he's still able to come in and be relevant and make music his way, his flow, and go number 1 outside of all the other stuff that's happening in hip hop. He just stayed true to himself. I mean, there are not many on this list, OGs on this list, that have managed to do that. I mean, besides Eminem and people like Jay-Z, who has about 14 number 1 albums, and I mean Kanye West, he can still put out albums and go number 1. I mean, but there is a very short list, and you know, I just smile now just knowing that Nas is on that list. Now, don't get it twisted. I mean, now, unlike MGK, where he, after decades and decades, he just now in 2021, just now getting a hit number 1 album. No, I mean, Nas, he has been doing this for years. This is his 6th number 1 album. Let's go through it. Okay, so the first one is, I believe it was Written. Now, It Was Written, it is Nas' biggest selling album until date. I mean, it stands right now with almost 3 million sold. That is his highest selling album. That went number 1. And then in 1997, he had like this collaboration project with Foxy Brown. It was called The Firm. That album also went number 1. Okay, so, but then in 1999, he released a highly anticipated album. I mean, because his last one was in 1996, so people was waiting for another hit, something big from Nas, and he did produce. He produced I Am. Now, I remember it getting a lot of great reviews, but I remember out of all his albums, this one got a lot of, it was criticized heavily. Speaking of I Am, no pun intended, because I am that I am, the scripture. Anyway, that's the thing, because it was commercial. It was said to be too commercial, and I'm a Nas fan, and I must say, there was a lot of commercial stuff on there. You know, it seemed like he did experiment a little bit more. And it worked. Don't get me wrong. 2.2 million sold till date. But yeah, it was commercial, but that's still on the list for his number 1. And then in 2007, he had Hip Hop Is Dead. And then the last number 1 that he had was 2008, and it was just called Untitled. Yeah. Nas put out an album called Untitled. That sucker went number 1. So Nas been doing this. He's been doing this for a long time. Now, I know you probably wonder, what are you talking about? How about Illmatic? Yeah, Illmatic, you know, initially it didn't do well. I mean, yeah, it's about at 1.7 million copies sold till date, but Illmatic, the reason why it's so legendary and it's seen, as many has said, that to be one of the greatest albums inside of hip hop, is because I think with Illmatic back then in 94, so many people, you know, it was a lot of mixtapes, you know, selling from your trunk, and, you know, a lot of, not even just that, you know, but basically there was a lot of songs. People would put like a lot of random songs, you know, and put together an album. Not to say that these songs weren't good, because, you know, the songs were great. Some of them were fire. But with Stillmatic, he changed the game. He changed the concept. You know, Nas was like, how about I take the whole album, the whole song, and tell a story where every song complements the other. Everything evolves around the story of life, and it speaks to the last track. I mean, it was an album of harmony. And up until then, no one has ever really did that. I mean, he paved the way. Not just paved the way of that concept, but Nas, he paved the way for artists that creates more mature and relatable content. Nas was one of the first to really start just branching off and doing that. And many, they took Nas' lead today. So that's why Stillmatic left such a fingerprint on hip hop, because of that reason. And then, you know, in 2002, I think he did something even greater than what he did in Stillmatic, because in 2002, he released Stillmatic. And the reason why that album was so great is because, yeah, 2.5 million sold, and he was able to do that with just being him. Just storytelling, mature content, relatable, and it was dark at times. And I say that because during the early 2000s, that was the era of bling and cash and money. That's what you were told to rap about if you wanted to sell. That was big. Not Stillmatic. Nas was like, So that's what makes, I think that's his most impressive album. Nas have had such a amazing, exciting, and just a great career. Like I said, this is why he's at the top of my list, because he paved the way. He's a foundational leader inside of hip hop when it comes to mature storytelling and content that is relatable. No one, he was doing that. He was ahead of his time in the 90s, in 1994 when he did that. Like I said, he paved the way. And that's why I am so happy that, man, you take someone from the 90s. Think about that, man. 3 decades, 30 years ago, he had a #1. And that same dude, 30 years later, a younger generation, a crazier, 30 years later, he comes back with a #1 and said, hey, and he just proves that you don't need gimmicks, you don't need crazy beats, you don't need beef, he just proved that you don't need any of this stuff that we are being told. You don't have to follow the trends, you don't have to be confrontational or get in the beef with someone. Nas just put out this album, got a couple of friends, and he told his story like he did 30 years ago, proving that all you need is lyrics, content, and a love for this thing that you call hip hop. Because hip hop can't just be something you do, but it's gotta be who you are. So congratulations to Nas and his yet another one, DJ Cal. Anyway there, guys, I thank you guys for watching. I like to know what you all think in the content, in the comments. This is what I want to know in the comments. I really want to know, where does Nas sit on your list for top rappers of all time, on your #5? I want to know your top 5 lists. I've said mine many times. He's #3 on my list. I like to know your list in the comments. As always, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. I will see y'all in the very next video. KIP, keep it positive.